My name is Chase Williams. I've been working here at GAI Insights as an intern all summer. I'd like to show you guys what I've actually made. So keep in mind, I have no background in AI. Yeah, I'm just a high schooler. So I started with no idea about how to use ChatGPT, no idea how to use Gemini, Grok, any kind of AI. But I learned very quickly, and I want to talk to you guys about how you can learn quickly. So this is just a basic background. The only kind of experience I have related to AI, I would say, is that I do know a little bit of Python and programming. So that's kind of why I chose to have this project, which was with N8N and HubSpot. It was kind of programming analytics and all that. But there is no real programming required, as you guys probably know, when you are talking to ChatGPT, because it can just write all the code for you. So having this programming background actually was not that important. So let's talk about the overview of what I did. My kind of entire assignment was to take analytical data from four different sources, which is the Zoom, YouTube, Substack, and LinkedIn, to record those into a Google Sheet and then to import those into HubSpot so that the different reports can be presented every week to the company. This was very daunting at first because keep in mind, I've never worked or programmed or done anything with Zoom, YouTube, Substack, HubSpot, or anything. Every time I've programmed with Python, it's just been exclusively like in a notepad, just pure programming, no AI, no applications, nothing like that. So this was a very kind of like almost too big of a task. Like when I started, I had no idea what I was going to do. But then as I've actually started to go into it and I've completed it now, but it's really interesting how you start to pick up these little pieces of information and then you kind of see how everything connects. And then by the end of it, I could see that really this was not that difficult. Like the way the N8N and the AI and everything works together, it's very possible for even someone with no experience to pick this up and to use this. So let's talk about what N8N is. This is like the best program I've ever used. This is amazing. It's a software that allows people to automate and connect different applications with very little programming. It uses JSON or in JavaScript. It's node-based and it's actually very fun. So, as I said before, this is based on JSON and JavaScript. There's a little bit of HTML when you're working with webhooks and websites and stuff, but that wasn't really a thing I used. What's interesting here is that because it's JSON and JavaScript, I had no idea how to do anything. And I relied entirely on ChatGPT and those kind of language models and stuff to guide me through this. The fact that it's node-based also is very satisfying and just kind of easy to pick up. You can very clearly kind of like carve out different applications and it makes visual sense. There's this coherency in all that you do that you don't really get when you just have like a giant wall of text. This way of making applications is a lot more intuitive. It makes a lot more sense. It's a lot more fun, honestly. So I'm glad I got to do this over the summer than like just programming. Here's an example of a workflow. This is very simple, the most like bare bones you can get. It just has some kind of trigger, and then each of these nodes perform a specific function or just like a step. So like the first one is an HTTP request, which means that it sends this kind of like information packet or tries to retrieve it. Here it's getting this from this developer app that I made over on LinkedIn. So also there's like developer apps that will let you get information from websites and stuff. So I had to make that and then connect it to this N8N workflow. Once it gets the payload from the developer app, it then goes to that little code, which gets the count and the date for whatever I'm trying to get. Then there's the edit fields node, which just puts it into a nice variable that can then go straight into the Google Sheet, and then it puts that into the row that it belongs and everything. So this workflow would only take about like an hour or so, and then like 50 minutes of that hour would like just be on that HTTP request with the credential and the developer app and everything. Because everything else, like the code, the editing field, the Google Sheets, the trigger, all that is very simple, and ChatGPT can like write all the code and everything and tell you to do it perfectly. So let's talk about the necessity of AI, because honestly, without ChatGPT, I would not have been able to do anything. If you see there on the left, that's only like a third of my actual conversations. I had so many, and I would only use it for work and trying to like figure this stuff out. ChatGPT is this amazing bridge between concept and application. So for me, I'm obviously thinking like a person and I'm like critically thinking. I'm not thinking in terms of programming and lines and stuff. So when I give it this actual like paragraph of what I want in normal like English, the AI can take that, turn it into JSON, turn it into these different nodes that I need and connect it all. tell me how it all works, and then I can apply that and actually make the workflow through that. It has the potential to create entire workflows instantly. Because it can make JSON, you can actually import an entire JSON file and it can make your entire workflow just like in 2 seconds. But it has the potential to do it because it never actually worked for me. Because of how the credentials and the developer app and stuff works, it would have to be like connected. So it would make an entire workflow instantly, but then the actual hard part it would mess up on, and then it would just be like basically starting from scratch anyway. And then the last part that's really important is that it is amazing for debugging. So before, I'm talking years ago when I'm like trying to mess with Python and doing whatever, to fix a problem in a program, you would have to pull up all this documentation. You'd have to pull up all these like forums, all these conversations on like Reddit or whatever where people have had the same problems. And it took forever. Like you would spend 3 hours on like a single line of code, trying to wrap your head around why it's not working, only to find it's like an incredibly simple solution that if you would have just known, you never would have had the problem. But with AI, you can just copy and paste your entire thing. It'll tell you exactly what your issue is, exactly how to fix it, and then you can just apply that fix. So it honestly saved me many, many hours worth of debugging. And I'm honestly kind of excited to imagine in the future how much programming and stuff is going to change. With tech and software development, there's a lot less of actually thinking line by line and a lot more prompt-based kind of working with the AI. So let's also go through the frustrations of AI though, because working with so much AI has made me realize it is a bit of a struggle. This term I've heard coined, the jagged edge of AI, that I think is very accurate. AI has some things it does very, very well, and some things it just completely fumbles on. Like as Mike was bringing up with the hallucinations and everything. Actually, I was going to bring this up, but I thought I'd save it for this. I had a very similar thing where it was trying to gaslight me into believing it was like 3 months in the future. So it was like July 12th, and it was telling me it was like October 15th. And I told it multiple times, like, no, no, it's July 12th. And then it would give me another day in the future, like December 20th or something. So I kept trying to go back and forth until finally it like submitted and was like, okay, you're right, it's July 12th. But it was just very strange because I have no idea why it would think it's the future or anything. But anyway, most debugging is because of errors the AI made. This always would frustrate me that the AI would give me a workflow or a thing of code or something. I would do it, it wouldn't work. I would tell it it wouldn't work, and then it would give me the right one. And it just made me think, okay, if it has the right one, why did it not just give me the right one in the first place? And sometimes I would spend hours trying to debug when it could have just given me a workflow that works immediately. But AI doesn't really think like that. It can't like predict ahead of what's going to work and what's not going to work because of these other points. It often pulls from outdated sources. So a lot of times it would tell me to use nodes that don't exist anymore or that like used to exist, but then were combined or updated into like other things. It would also tell me to like choose options in different credentials that have been renamed or changed or like whatever. So it would give me instructions that I could not do. And I'd have to send it screenshots and tell it that I could not do that. And then it would actually realize what's going on and give me correct instructions. It often imagines things like what I said before with imagining it's 3 months in the future. I would also imagine that like I'm programming in a different language for some reason, which you can't do on N8N. There's a few times it tried to get me to use like C sharp, which I have no idea why it would do that. And anyway, this is the HubSpot workflow picture to the right. There's only like 5 nodes here that are actually needed. Everything on the bottom and the top and like all this extra fluff was just nodes it told me to make and walked me through. And I spent hours making the credentials, the developer apps, the HTTP request, everything, only to realize that it didn't make any sense and did not work. So let's talk about my magnum opus, the Zoom workflow. All right. This thing took forever, like multiple days worth of hours grinding on this one workflow because AI is completely like lost when it comes to this, apparently. So at first, you see on the bottom where it says the participants, all I had to do was just get the number of participants, which
And
is really,
Chase, explain what the use case is because they don't understand it. It's a simple use case, right? We want to know how many
oh,
people.
yeah. So we're just trying to track analytics. So like what I said with the overview of taking the analytics, here we're just taking the number of participants every week at the Learning Lab and recording it. So that's all we're doing is just recording the number of participants every week. But AI tells me that what I have to do is get this token to access this specific meeting, to access this specific list of participants, count each participant individually, and then get the total count. So I do that, and then it says, wait a minute, that doesn't work because every page only has like 20 participants. So now you need to make a loop that gets the first page, counts all the participants, tells it whether there's a next page or not. If there is, goes to the next page. If it doesn't, then it sends the full count. But then we do that, and it says there's like 30 participants, or it says there's like 200 participants, nowhere near 79. We're just trying to get that 79. So then it says, okay, now we need criteria to filter out different participants. Because if somebody joins and leaves and then rejoins and re-leaves, it counts them twice. If there's somebody who's like in the waiting room but then leaves, it counts them. There's all this weird ways that it like tracks. It literally tracks like everybody. So we have to redo it. We have to redo what participants we collect, what participants we filter out. There's all this stuff. And then another thing is that I could not find any source for this, like any like clear explanation. But how HubSpot works, and apparently this is just like a programming thing, is that different things of data are in like different groups. So one of the things that was not working at all, and I couldn't wrap my head around it until I like took a step back and came back like a few days later and like thought about it again, is that it was taking the list of participants, which is one data entry, and then it was taking the meeting ID and like the next page information and stuff as a different data entry. So when it got to that if statement, which is that little green switch there, it would send the list of participants back through the loop so that it could get the next page. But then it would look at the meeting ID and it would say, oh, the meeting ID doesn't have another page to go through. The meeting ID can go forward. But that doesn't work at all because that then doesn't work for the actual HTTP request. It needs the meeting ID to go through the page. So we can't get the next page of participants because we don't have the meeting ID. And then also when it sends it through to the other side, the Google Sheet can't use the meeting ID for anything. So then it just gets stuck there. So it was like crashing on both sides of this if statement because for some reason it doesn't take the data as a whole. It takes different parts of it and compares it, which is very strange because I'm used to like a whole array of information and that whole thing being compared. So finally, after struggling for several hours, I told AI to just cut it, just stop doing everything, and it literally just look at the 79 and record the 79. And the really frustrating thing was that it could do that the whole time. The whole time it said, "Oh, yeah, we'll just do that." And then it gave me this in like 30 minutes. So the whole like several hours of arguing with it and trying to get it to do this whole like cycling through pages and counting participants and all that was just like useless. Like you literally could have just taken the number in the first place. And so I learned a very important lesson that day, and that is that you don't want AI to come up with ideas for you. You got to come up with the really good critical thinking ideas and then apply them. And so then I plugged that into this, which this is the overall entire summer project. This is all the workflows for the Zoom, YouTube, and everything put into one. So that way, instead of having like four different operations a day where it does every single workflow, it puts them all into one single one and just does like a morning and an evening operation. And that's another thing. AI does not seem to understand the concept of like simplicity. Like it will always go with the most like extravagant and like big workflow possible when you could accomplish it so much easier and so much simpler. Like getting the most straightforward and direct solution is like a human concept that it doesn't really understand. So now let's talk about HubSpot. N8N by comparison is much more fun than HubSpot. HubSpot is like all the struggle, but then like none of the like satisfying parts. So like this report here, for instance, I had to make this so many times because like first I'm trying to show this is a report for how many people are like watching the YouTube stream each day, right? And we're not streaming on Saturday or Sunday, so it doesn't make sense for us to show Saturday or Sunday, right? But for some reason, HubSpot requires that if you're showing it daily, it shows every single day and you can't cut out specific days. So I had to manually go in and give it a special string, not a date, it's just text, and then sort the text alphabetically so it appears like it's sorted by day, when really it's just sorted alphabetically by something that happens to match the day. And then another thing, kind of break it down by week. Like if you make a report in PowerPoint, right? You make a graph in PowerPoint, you choose all the colors, you choose the way it looks. It's just so simple and intuitive and direct. HubSpot does not let you do that at all. I was trying to break it down by week, and then it just makes it a rainbow. And there's nothing I can do to make it not a rainbow. I wanted it to be like this, what you see here where it alternates, but it wouldn't let me do that at all, no matter what I tried to tell it. Even when I tried to change the colors and change the information and everything, so again, I had to delete all the entries, which, by the way, another thing about HubSpot I don't like, you have to manually delete every entry through like 5 different menus. You have to like click on it, click on like the special options, click on like the specific properties, and then click delete and then confirm you want to delete and like all this stuff. Why can't I just delete them all at once? It's like it says I don't have permission to delete a bulk entry of a lot of things, but it lets me delete them one by one. So I don't even know why it wouldn't let me delete a lot of them. But anyway, so I'm trying to break it down by week. And to do that, I had to manually insert 1 and 2 for whether it's an odd or an even week, and then break it down by that. And finally, that's how we have this report here. But also sometimes HubSpot just like doesn't, it's just not very smart or intuitive. Like you see on the left, we have like 6 July 16th in the database. And that's because for some reason, the only way to override and like change the information on an entry is if you have the record ID, right? The record ID is this crazy string, which you can't choose what the record ID is. And also the only way to get the record ID would be to have some HTTP request accessing the actual record ID, putting it into the Google Sheet, and then importing it using the record ID. But then that creates a whole host of issues because if the timing is wrong, and then you try to import it using the record ID, but the HubSpot hasn't sent over and updated the Google Sheet yet, then it'll just like crash because it tries to import it and it doesn't work. So eventually I just decided that we're gonna have multiples, and sometimes that's just how it is. Luckily, it doesn't do anything wrong. It just looks kind of weird when you're looking at the entries because they're all like the same. It's just a lot of them. And then over on the right, you see this graph where it suddenly spikes off of the screen entirely. This was some weird like integer overflow problem, I think. But I literally just deleted the entries and put them back in, and then it worked. So I still have no idea what caused the anomaly. But yeah, it's a whole thing. Anyway, talking about learning, I love learning. I had a lot of fun learning about ChatGPT and N8N. It was very fun. N8N especially. If I had to do like any like intern programming job, it would like be exclusively N8N because that's just like fun and you can really feel like the success and whenever you do a good job. Because then like once I get YouTube automated, I could see every single day it would record those analytics and I no longer had to do that by hand. It was like I could actually feel the automation and like tell it was making a difference. I learned a lot about YouTube, Zoom, LinkedIn, and Substack. I've never used those before. You see on the right, there's some developer app stuff, which is it's a whole thing. LinkedIn actually was kind of annoying because you have to like apply to get like into this special developer program, which is very exclusive, and they denied me like twice for some reason, which I thought I was doing a great job. So I don't know why they denied me. But eventually they got like they're still reviewing it now for some reason, but eventually they're gonna get back to me. Then I learned a lot about HubSpot, which I kind of wish I didn't because it was a bit of a struggle. Anyways, here's some basic terminology. I probably should have put this on the first slide, but you live and you learn. So HTTP request, that's just like when you ask for something from a website. APIs, that's like application programming interface or something. It's just like these different programs. Webhooks, that's similar to HTTP requests, but it's like automatic or something. I tried to use that one time and AI gave me a horrible plan and it didn't work, so I never used them again. And then developer apps, that's where the money is. I like developer apps. They are what allows you to actually connect different applications to N8N and then actually choose the kind of jurisdiction of what you want your application to do. So like you would make a Zoom developer app that would give you the viewers or the participants or whatever the payload was. And that's how I was able to make the workflows. So anyway, thank you for listening. I kind of like ranted a little bit, but yeah, it was very fun.
Excellent work, Chase. Excellent, excellent work, and really valuable. I mean, this is a really important project that we've been wanting to automate for a long time. So it is a dashboard that we got that we really monitor the business with. Questions for Chase? Go ahead, Alden. No, that's fake. Fake
She's just
question.
giving me a thumbs up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thumbs up. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Hey, great presentation, and I'm glad you learned a few things. Among them, how terrible most software in the world is,
Yeah.
which is too bad, but it seems to be true. The question I had was when you said you're asking, it was really bad at workflows. Were you specifically asking it for N8N workflows or just workflows in general?
Yes, I would specify every time to work exclusively with N8N, which I think I
Okay.
probably should have like iterated it more often because sometimes it would kind of like meander and think of like I think there's probably other applications it would like imagine or pull like documentation from, and that might have been why it hallucinated a few times. But yeah,
Yeah, it could also be that they're just N8N is very new, so it may not have all that many things to learn from about N8N specifically. So, but I think you're right that they tend to take the most complex possible solution. That's a statistical phenomenon of the way these things are built. But they do because they're told to be sort of verbose because most people are happy with more verbose answers if you're talking about language in general. Um, but when you're talking about programming or math, you generally want the opposite. You want the most concise, we call it elegant possible answer. And they're not really good at that. But great stuff. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Go
it's
ahead,
a
Christine.
that's a good way to put it, putting it like elegantly.
Go ahead, Christina.
Chase, I just wanted to compliment you. You are very articulate and your presentation was very clear. And I feel your pain having lived through HubSpot integrations many times myself. But I just wish you well. And I hope that we all get to see you again very soon.
Thank you. This was kind of stressful for me. I'm not gonna lie.
You did a great job. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I also very much enjoyed it. And I've had a very similar experience to you, Chase, where you're drawn in by doing something that it would take you 6 months to do, and it does it in 10 minutes. And then you waste 2 weeks on something where you're going in circles and it's generating all this insane stuff you have to figure out. The other thing I just wanted to say also was I just read an article recently. This is related to the simplicity thing that you and Tim were saying. And the guy said, he confirmed what you guys were saying, and he said he actually started reading books on sort of good programming and taking nuggets out of them and generating guidance for them to do things in a clear module. And he said that was very effective. I haven't personally tried it, but I just wanted to share that.
And David, you're talking about adding that to the prompt. You're instructing it to be more clear and modular.
Yeah, and it wasn't even, yes, but not every prompt, but in the background. I mean, the yes, as an instruction guideline. And it was not only, it was being succinct, clear. And as he said, he actually, there were books that changed his whole approach to programming. And he sort of summarized the high level view that made that work and gave that to the LLM. And he said that was a big improvement.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you. Chase, well, you got the microphone. We're all interested in the impact of AI on education, both high school and college. Share, how are you feeling about it? What are your views and what are you seeing in your classmates? Is this overblown? Is it changing? Is the education as we know it now forever gonna should be blown
I
up?
think, okay, I got some controversial opinions. I think it's okay to like cheat a little bit with it. Like, I'm gonna be honest, nobody wants to write like 1,000 word essays like weekly. So honestly, one of the things I use it to like make an overview and like give me like ideas, and then I'll just kind of make like paragraphs based on the points that it gives me. But then also like math homework. Math homework is a whole like because I'm in pre-calculus right now and we're learning about all this crazy stuff and I feel like we probably should have spent a little bit more time like reviewing and like getting into it slowly, but my math teacher just like jumped straight in. And so I'm using a little bit of AI to explain these concepts and stuff that we like very quickly and very like lightly skimmed over. Because AI also can explain it in different ways. So I can say like, oh, can you explain this to me and like a 5-year-old would or something like that. And then he can put it in much simpler terminology since like with pre-calculus, he might say, my math teacher might say terminology and stuff that I don't remember. And then he'll just build on that and continue using terminology. But if I don't memorize that terminology like immediately, then I'll get lost as he starts to like build on it and continue. So the AI is really nice because it can kind of take a step back and like go at my pace. Also, I really like using AI with like chemistry and kind of science homework, because there's a lot of things like I don't know if you guys had chemistry and had to deal with quantum numbers, but it's all these things with like atoms and then like individual neutrons and stuff. And there were so many steps to it that I would get like an answer wrong on a test, and I would have no idea where I went wrong. Like it would be a 20-minute problem. And then to figure out where I went wrong on a 20-minute problem, I don't want to spend another 20 minutes just to have the chance of getting it wrong again. Because then that's like 40 minutes if I have to do it twice. But then I just send it to ChatGPT, say, hey, well, how do I do this? And then I just follow through, and this whole thing gets done in like 3 minutes. It saves me a lot of time. So yeah, I'd say ChatGPT is definitely changing education on a student side. I don't know too much about teachers, about whether they use AI in their curriculums or in what they do. But honestly, I've read some emails sent by one of my teachers, and they seem to be very AI-esque. So I think they are using a little bit of AI to write emails and stuff. I don't know if they're using it for assignments and stuff or like for grading. Because then if you use AI to grade, then like who knows, it might do something crazy. But I think it definitely is going to be integrated and become like an essential part of education.
Yeah, they're using it for student recommendations, curriculum development, test, grading test. They're using it like crazy over there. All the administration stuff here, IEPs. Fantastic. Go ahead, Ian and Alden.
Yeah, so I kind of fell into the pre-calc trap as well. Just 20 years later than Chase. So but in high school, like I had pretty hard time getting to like pre-calc and stuff like that. But then I watched like a video on Amazon's education channel about quantum physics, and then now I'm learning more pre-calc and stochastic thinking. So I think just you're going to be able to learn so much faster at your own pace. And one thing that you may want to look into is WebGL along with WebGPU, because that will do some of the graphing. And AI is actually really good at writing the code for that. So that might send you down another rabbit hole, but it's really fun because you get to see a lot of how the graphs work and how the equations work too, but visually.
All right, I'll look into that. Thank you.
Thanks. So we'll go Alden and Karen. Go ahead, Alden.
Yeah. So first of all, fantastic presentation, Chase. When I grow up, I wish I get like 10% of your presentation skills. So that's amazing. Secondly, you said that, you struggled with this a lot over the summer, and I'm very happy for you. In the words of Jensen Huang, may you have a lot more pain and suffering as you go through your high school and college.
Why? Tell them why, Alden. Why do you think that's a benefit to them?
Oh yeah. So from Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, he says that it's the pain and suffering that actually makes people who they are. So he really wishes people to have a lot of pain and suffering. And I think the fact that you struggle through it, also should make it exciting, because, it's exciting not because it's easy, but because it's hard. So that,
Yeah.
I don't
right.
know if
I
his
feel
wife
like
agrees with that, Alden.
Sorry.
I don't know if his wife agrees with that. Is he married?
Yeah. And the third part is, as you're working with these complicated workflows, it's always good to first start with a plan. Like ask the AI to give a plan and then break it down into like those components of the plan and test each plan individually. Like I remember a couple of months ago, I spent an entire weekend because the AI tried to do the whole thing in 5 minutes. And the next thing I knew, it took like 20 hours, right? Because it just goes up and tries to create the entire workflow, and now nothing works and you don't know what is happening. So one of the lessons I've learned is to take small components and just get those done, test them, and then glue everything together like one at a time. So that
yeah,
really
that's
helps when creating large programs or workflows.
That's great.
yeah, I
Thanks.
definitely think that's like the strength is like the tiny parts, and then like the human part is like bringing it together. But like AI can do like the small parts really well, but then it's up to you to like critically think and put it together. What
Yeah.
were we saying, Paul?
No, I was just saying, well, we just got a few more minutes, so go Karen and Tim. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, just Chase, what a great way to spend your summer. And thanks to Paul for having Chase and having Chase share what he did. It's always great to have that kind of beginner's mind for the rest of us to see like what might be blocking us and how to get unstuck. So I really do appreciate that. And I've been thinking a lot about how AI can be used in the education process in the classroom. And a couple of suggestions I've thought of is when you get that rubric for what good looks like from your teacher, using that as part of your prompt to say, you know, here's my work, here's the rubric, what am I missing? You know, how can I improve this? So I think that's a great way to use AI as an assistant. And then I think the other area I'm excited about is the whole notion notebooks. So, you know, taking all those class notes, putting them, all the language that you're learning, putting it into a notebook LM. And then you can, when you can't remember that term or you can't remember the context for something, ask it in that notebook, which then it'll be in the context of the class. So you might not get some other explanation that's maybe not as relevant or contextual to your work. But so those are a couple ideas that I've been thinking about, and I'm very interested in the role of AI in education and improving the classroom and the teaching and learning experience. So congrats and good luck.
It sounds like one thing that
Thank you.
right, this idea of the super tutor, you know, the super patient tutor that's always with me, whatever level I want, feels like a killer app. Yeah. That's great. Go ahead, Tim. Take us home here.
Okay, so I'll try not to rant too much because, you know, education is definitely a button push for me. I think I'm optimistic here a little bit because of what you said about the ability of AI to potentially be a tutor. But the question is to tutor what? And I think I even told the story here, but I'll tell it again, which is, you know, look, if you want to teach kids music, the solution of particularly Western places like the US is, well, we'll put a piano in every classroom. But the music's not in the piano. Okay, you're not going to learn anything about music just by having a piano. You might learn how to play chopsticks. You're not going to learn much about music. And the same thing applies here. In fact, you know, we could have a long argument about whether we should even be teaching kids calculus at this point anymore. Not because math isn't important, but because calculus is a 200-year-old math that doesn't get used much, even in mathematical worlds. And why do we learn these things and how do we learn them? And maybe the most important thing we should be teaching kids is how to ask questions, really good questions. And the advantage of having AI is if you know how to ask good questions, you're unleashing kids' imagination and curiosity, which is the main thing, in my opinion, that education needs to do. And in fact, most of education is designed to suppress imagination and suppress curiosity. And one of the biggest things that really made me literally brought a tear to my eye was I was helping get Wi-Fi established in inner city schools in Boston, like 25 years, almost 30 years ago now. And this one kid from a very difficult neighborhood who, you know, they had nothing, but they gave him a laptop. And, you know, he actually thought to himself, hey, I don't understand what the teacher just said. And he typed it into Google and the teacher was wrong. And, you know, he was like, wow, you know, I was able to ask the teacher and she actually, thank God for him, was a pretty good teacher in that sense, and said, looked it up with him and said, you're right, we got it wrong, here's the right answer. That's a beautiful thing. And AI should be even better at enabling that kind of question and answering. The teachers often are not so amenable to that. So I'm optimistic because it's hard for them to prevent. And I hope that kids, and Chase, you certainly showed a lot of determination and curiosity. And the point about, you know, most education happens when you're struggling is very true. It's been said for a long time. So I'm sort of optimistic, but I do worry that everybody's just going to assume that AI will solve all the problems. And what we really need to be thinking about is what are we trying to have them learn in the first place?
That's great. Great, Tim. Thanks for a thoughtful conversation as usual. Chase, fabulous. You're the future. Keep learning and teaching. You're doing a great job. And everyone else,